Hey guys, so this week we're taking a look at lighting and 3-point lighting in particular. So I want you to know whether you're doing 3ds Max or Maya, you're going to have to deal with pretty much the same lights. They might be called something a little bit differently, but they're going to do the same exact thing. So I have this little image that I created showing you the different lights in each software. So in Max, you're going to notice that you have a target spot and a target direct versus a free spot and a free direct. So we have directional light, which is the same as your direct in Maya, and then we also have a spotlight in Maya and in Max. Now in Max, I like to think of this as kind of the old video cameras that you used to have to hold onto your shoulder. And then imagine a tennis ball on a string attached to it. So when you have a target light, and in Maya you can always hit the option to add a target, what you're doing is saying that yes, if I've got my light on my shoulder, I can rotate my body to rotate the light to see what it's looking at, but I also have this target, aka the tennis ball on a string, that I can move that around as well to make the light point towards that. This becomes beneficial with animation if you wanted to keep, let's say a character was walking across the stage. Yes, you could just move your camera or your light to follow them, but if you have a target, you could keep the target and actually link it to the person so that it will constantly be following them. Other than that, the lights do the same thing. You'll see that we both have Omni, and then a skylight in Max is going to kind of be like a Maya sun and sky. In Maya, it's in a different area, but this is what mimics sunlight the most. Both of them have added technology to try to say what angle is the sunlight going to be if you type in 11 a.m. So it's something really cool, but not something we're going to get into today. So let's see what we're going to look at today. We have standard 3-point lighting. You're going to see that things are lit with 3-point lighting all over the place. This is going to be one of those things that now when you're with friends, after you kind of get used to what it looks like, you're going to be like, oh, watching a movie and well, that's 3-point lighting. But what it is, obviously 3, we have 3 lights. You're going to start with your key light. Down here, it's usually the main light and it's going to be the strongest. It's on an angle so that we're providing a highlight and shadow onto your object. Doesn't have to be on this side, can be over here and you'll just flip the other ones, but you do want some sort of an angle. We're not just lighting it straight on, again, creating a nice highlight and a shadow. Then we have our fill light. Secondary light, it's going to be opposite of your key light in comparison to our camera. Now, if we just had our key light, you'd be creating a very dramatic lighting. Maybe this would be good for if you had a villain coming up and he was making a big decision or something like that, but we need our fill light to kind of tone it down a little bit. You'll see that you'll still have, the highlight and shadow, but it's going to make it softer and less bright and kind of fill in that shadow area a little bit. Then we have our backlight or rim light here. It's going to be behind your subject and it provides definition. It's going to give that nice highlight on the very, very edge, especially if you're looking at somebody's hair. You can see a really nice highlight. This separates your object from the background. Makes it look more three-dimensional. Okay, so there are links online for you to look at 3-point lighting. Feel free to ask if you have any questions, but I would really look at a lot of examples online, seeing too what each light provides, because you can take a look at just what a key light should do, just what a fill light should do, just what a rim light should do, or backlight, and then when they're all put together, what they make. Now, when we're creating this in the 3D software, we need to think about what lights do we want to use, the intensity and color of our light, and the shadows. So I wrote that up here because I really want you guys to think about it. Whenever we create a light, you need to go into the options, make sure the shadows are on and working appropriately, and how intense your light is. Okay, because we said the key is going to be kind of the most intense, the fill is going to be a little bit softer. So now what type of lights do you use? Now there's, you can find different people that have different styles, but I want you to explore these lights and see what you think on your own. Going through these a little bit, our spotlight is going to be a light that actually sets a spot in space. So think about this as your flashlight. A lot of times in cartoon, think of like Scooby-Doo or something like that. You shine your flashlight against the wall, and when you look at the wall, you see a circle. It's a rounded shape of light. Now you can edit the feathering of the light. You can edit how big that spot is. The penumbra is how big of a spot do you want in the middle of that light. All these things are editable, but know that none of these lights are actually providing light in the air or in the space between the light and your object. So in Max and Maya, when I set up a light to shine on my object, I'm not going to see these beams in the center. That gets into a little bit more of a technical lighting that I'm sure you will learn, but for the beginning course, we're just worried about what light and shadow is casting on your object. Okay? Our directional light, or our direct, before technology came out to do the skylight or the Mia Sun and Sky, this was our most, similar to the sun. It's light that comes from a direction, so you can't find a point in space where this is coming from. It's literally all coming from, whatever angle you set the light up to be. Now it's important to know, like with a directional light, you can rotate it, but scaling and moving it isn't going to matter because again, it's just coming from a direction, so it doesn't matter if you set the light here or over here. If you have it pointing to the left, the light is going to be shining to the left. An Omni light is going to be similar over here to like our point light and our ambient light. I'll tell you the difference between the two in a second. But it's light coming from a point in space. So think of this more like a light bulb. You know exactly where the bulb is, and the light is shining in all directions from it. Hence why we have to use lampshades, because without them, they would just shine brightly all around. Okay, we're not going to worry about area lights too much with this. If you want to give them a shot, you can. Area lights take a shape and kind of like fluorescent bulbs in the ceiling, of an office or of a school. So you get like kind of a rectangle and the light is shining from that shape. In Maya, an ambient light is meant kind of as a bounce light or a secondary light. It doesn't really deal with shadows quite as much, even though it's an option. An ambient light, no matter what software you're in, we have to create everything, right? We're starting from scratch. So if I'm looking at your computer right now, there's light coming from your screen that's hitting your keyboard, and depending upon the lighting in the room you're in, it might bounce back even onto your face or your chest. So in the software, what we need to do, create the light that's on the screen, might have a little bit of a reflection on the keyboard, then you're going to have to use an additional light to light what's lighting up your skin or your face. So in Maya, we use ambient light. In Max, you can kind of play around with the different lights, but we're going to have to create that secondary lighting on our own. So this week we're using our 3-point lighting and rendering out some nice frames. Okay, let's take a quick look in Maya just to see what I'm talking about. So in our rendering tab, we have our lights here, or you can go to Create, Lights over here. You can always hit the box for some information about it. Intensity is set at 1. Remember I talked about intensity, color of your light, and shadow color. Generally, lights aren't going to be a pure white. I think, when you're driving and you see that very pure white light, it's very, very noticeable. Take a look at the lighting in your house or wherever you are. Generally, there's some yellow to it. And if you think about complementary colors, that means our shadow is going to have just a little bit of purple into it. If you want to go crazy and test out what different lights are doing, I recommend that you change the color completely. Like if we're working on our 3-point lighting, sometimes I like to make each one a color so I can really see how they're affecting the object as a whole. So we'll just add a little bit of yellow and add a little bit of purple. Alright, so like I said, directional light coming from a direction. I'm going to move it so you can see the icon. You do not need to move it whatsoever. For the sake of just showing, I will do a plane, and we'll just color nice lime green, and then our cube, and we'll make the, actually I'll do a new one. Why not? Some bright purple. Alright, so with our light, we can rotate if you want to create an angle, and then we can always do a test render. Okay, so you can see our light is coming from that direction. It's casting a shadow. By default, mine's using the Arnold render. That's what's new in 2018. But no matter what light you're dealing with, you want to check shadows. Here's where you can change the shadows. And if we scroll down, just make sure that ray trace shadows are turned on. If you're using the Maya software renderer, you're going to use depth map shadows. So here's our intensity. I can crank this up, do a second render. You can see it's getting brighter. Okay, so this is how it's going to work for all of the lights. I highly recommend that you just do a test making, some sort of primitive on a plane, seeing the shadows that are cast, seeing the different brightness, changing the colors, and seeing the difference between the different lights. Okay, then you can always save your image or hit the option box, but I'll just do File, Save Image. I can save it on my desktop as a JPEG and call it render for right now. If you want to change the settings here, and this goes for Max or Maya, you're always going to need to go into your render settings. So in your render settings, if we scroll down, that's when we can change the width and height. I recommend you do 1280 by 720 as a smaller ratio. You can always do 1920 by 1080 to be high def. And then in Maya, we have our resolution gate to show what the camera is actually seeing. It's this little button here with a blue circle in the center. Max has the same type thing, so we can just see what we're dealing with, so you can really zoom in or get whatever angle you want on your object. And then when we do the render, you can see what's happening. Now, because I cranked up the size, the render is going to take a little bit longer, but you're going to get a better high quality render. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions on lighting. Also take this week to really clean up anything from your milestone project. Post it early in the week. It's fine if it's a work in progress. I think we all understand and we want to help each other to do better. So post early and then you can get some critiques and fix it up. All right, hope you have a good week.